Welcome to the COVID Diaries interviews, funded by the New Hampshire Humanities Collaborative and the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. Mercedes Mannarino interviews Larson P. Viljanen.
All right. Okay.
All right. So, you had a very busy 2020. It seemed like you've been working as a family counselor in Nashua. You got married at some point. You and the band finished an album. So, I guess right off the bat, what I want to know is what's been keeping you sane throughout this?
Oh boy. So I think the thing that helps keep everything sane is having something that you can look forward to and that you do just for fun. Um, and so I think for me, especially when I was interning and doing 2 classes online and working full time, was like about 70 hours a week of just like doing clinical work and things like that. And then on top of that, doing all the notes for it, and then on top of that, um, doing classes and writing papers on the weekend, was just having a Tuesday night where I would go and just play music and maybe 30 minutes if I had enough energy, just do something just intrinsically fun, right? So like something that had nothing to do with everything else you had to get through. Um, that you know, also helping out when you can, I think is something that makes you feel better already. Not being the one who never ever ever cooks, things like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Doing the dishes when you do have that chance or that energy when you get home. So I think just looking at it more like a day by day thing or even a week by week is really helpful.
Interesting. No, I have something I think I've seen a lot recently is this question of how, when people were living through unprecedented times, living through historical events, how could, for instance, how could people who lived through the Second World War just stay at home and gripe about like the price of rations or have their hobbies and things? But no, I suppose you're right that it's so necessary to have a small repeating occurrence of something light, something normal, something precedented.
Yeah, I think expectations is a lot of it too. If you know it will end, then you have that. Hey, it could be false, but that idea that things will change eventually, right? If you had the idea that this was the same forever, I don't know if I could have got through just like working that much without having a pandemic on top of that, like losses in the family, uh, all those other stuff that go on too. You know what I mean? So that's a big part too.
Yeah, managing expectations. That's a very, I think, mature, very well healthy attitude to take to that. Would you now, in your experience working with the clients that you do, would you say that that's the predominant attitude, or what's the mood? How are people feeling? How are people coping? At least in your section of the population.
So I work with kids from 6 to sometimes as old as 19. All of them have mental health diagnoses, and all of them definitely have had a lot of changes because of COVID. I've had some that have lost family members. I have a lot that were working through a lot of social anxieties, starting to get out there, starting to kind of interact with their same age peers a lot more, engage in school for the first time in a way where they felt, good about it in themselves and their grades were going up. And then all of a sudden they now have to work from home. And there's a lot of different things that go on. I've seen a lot of kids who kind of internalize it. They see that it's really hard to log on every day, so they kind of don't. It's exhausting too. Um, and then after a while, they say, "There's no way I can do 35 assignments in this week." So then I'm a failure and I'm bad at school and I'm this and that. And then they kind of have to deal with this guilt from it. Um, I've had a lot of parents who are really frustrated that they now have to be the homework enforcer in a lot of ways. They kind of have to make sure the kids do the assignments every day. They have to learn how to use technology. A lot of them are the grandparents that are raising the kids as well. So that has been really interesting too. And just I don't know, just how to navigate, you know, what is online school is very different. I
It
have to
is.
teach kids how to email professors every day, right? And just how do you ask for help? How do you advocate if you already had a hard time in person? Now that you're at home and you can kind of just say you did your assignment and walk away, like how do you actually get through that, you know?
And now, have you been conducting a lot of your therapy sessions? I I believe previously at one point you mentioned you were conducting them over Zoom. Is that still the main way that you're working, or have you done any? Have you gone back to work physically at all?
That's a good question. So I was interning in more of the intense higher needs kind of families,
Hmm.
the ones that the state gives bigger funding for to decrease hospitalizations because it's so expensive on the system.
Right.
Um, and so for those kids, they have a higher need. So I would literally meet them outside of their house, go for these walks, try not to do too much trauma work while we're going through Mines Falls, things like that. And sometimes just out in the backyard, play games if they had a patio that was suitable towards, you know, being 6 feet apart, things like that. Um, and then there were a few times when I could use things like MS Teams primarily to help people. We did use Zoom for a little bit, but we decided to switch only to the other one. Um, and it has its strengths. I found it helpful sometimes doing family therapy with a lot of people at the same time, even if some maybe were even, you know, away for college or something. They could still kind of join in and be a part of these sessions, which was helpful. Um, but primarily, the clients I have a lot of trauma, uh, or they have just high energy. You know, it's a lot of oppositional defiant disorder kind of work, and
Mhm.
that doesn't really go well over MS Teams. You know, I had one kid who put me on a dog's collar and just had the dog run around the house. So like my screen is just going nuts. And I just don't know if that's always the best hour to see people in. So I've had to find ways to navigate how to do it safely. Um, I see some in the building. I still visit some outside of their homes, which luckily it has been a pretty laid back winter. So I've still been able to do that. And then I do have some that I do check in with over MS Teams and sometimes calls. So yeah, a
Now,
mix of everything.
no, that's cool. I didn't realize that you had those opportunities to be as creative, I want to say, in meeting the needs of your clients. And you answered a lot of my next question, which was how much of the efficacy of a therapy session comes from that, someone being physically present in the room with you.
Mhm.
How different is it conducting like those check-ins over MS Teams? I have to admit that I personally have not seen my therapist at all because I personally never enjoyed doing phone sessions, doing video sessions, that kind of thing. But
Mhm.
I, everyone's different, I assume.
Yeah, I think it matters just how comfortable they are in kind of working through conversations. Some even calling on the phone, like you talked about, could work well. Um, Sometimes they actually open up more every once in a while, especially if they really start on a topic that they don't realize that they thought so much about.
Mhm.
But you have to just focus so much more just on verbal delivery, how you kind of continue the session, and you can't really kind of add in those fun activities as well. It's not as easy over the phone. And video, you get a lot more chances. But at the same time, over video, it's still not quite as conducive with a lot of kids. Um, it really matters on just their need, their level of engagement, and hmm, just kind of what kind of work they have that they're doing. Anything that's trauma based, I would always want to do in the building with them. Um, just because if you're having someone talk about something that's probably the most painful memory ever, you want to at least be in a place where you can help them kind of feel more regulated after, right? I mean, that's just good therapy, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Um, so you never want to do that while you're, say, walking around the mall. That would be terrible.
Mhm.
even, you know, somewhere that's like kind of a nice place outside, you still wouldn't want to do that. So those things still should be more of a private setting. And I don't think phone therapy is the best way to do that as well. So yeah, it's just kind of the needs of the client. The easy way for me to judge it is if they wouldn't stay in a room with most therapists for a normal session, then video therapy is not going to go well, except maybe like one out of every couple if you have to, right?
I'm kind of trailing on this idea of being forced to adapt to physical and technological constraints and how those impact the relationship you have with something, be it a client, the outside world, etc. What would you say has been the impact of Black Hatch hasn't played a show since, well, I know I went to one in February, so February, and part of, I think, the appeal of bands in these sort of underground DIY scenes is that so much of your enjoyment of the music comes from going to those live shows, going to those house shows, hanging out in someone else's basement. How would you say the lack of live performance has impacted the relationships that you have with your fans and, to another extent, your whole creative process?
Yeah, well, I'd say we never had to book a show because we always had more people who would ask for more shows, just always.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of, we're kind of lazy in that way, right? We never really learned how to do that or reached out. I think we planned one show after pretty much we were asked to plan the show, and we're like, okay. And just having all that stop, this is like the first time since really we've been kind of playing since kind of like the end of high school. So yeah, it's definitely weird. Just kind of like the nervousness of playing, the excitement of doing it, and then seeing other people play, right, is just really fun. So that's weird. It's weird not to talk to people about music. It's weird not to see what other people are doing with music. And I mean, not everybody who likes music is in a band. So also everybody else who just comes for the music and, you know, tries to talk to you about something and you're like, oh, thanks. I don't know how to take compliments. You know, that's gone, which is kind of weird as well.
Yeah.
I'd say, you know, that's definitely one part of it. But I think it also gives time for people to kind of recuperate, I guess, in a way, kind of refocus. And I think we really kind of needed that. I think a lot of people in the, you know, in the group were just kind of like, there was things that had to be done, but there's always this show. You can just get ready for the show.
Right.
You just kind of do this thing. You just kind of, maybe we'll do this, we'll do that, instead of kind of doing that other organizational aspect that takes a lot more energy and focus. And it's not just as fun as, you know, playing in front of a whole bunch of people. So in that sense, I think it's good for people to kind of take a break. Although it's been a long break, and it probably will be a longer break as well, you know. So it's been weird.
Weird.
Yeah.
But something good's like clearly come out of it, because you did, as I said, really, you finished an album. Would you have finished that album if you hadn't been inside since last year?
I don't know. It's a good question, because all the songs in the album are almost 3 years old, if not 4.
Really?
I mean, for the most part, not everything was done, but none of it is like wholly original. It's just kind of a really slow process of having people come in and out of their own issues and, you know, moments of depression and just kind of ignoring people or focusing on other projects. And then we finally kind of had enough time for everyone to respond in the chat and figure things out and do things. So with all that said and done, you know, I think it definitely helps. And I think also it's helped to give time to work on newer stuff as well. I mean, we've been getting back and being creative and having fun with writing music again, which is good. Even after this album, we probably have 8 or 9 tracks that are already pretty fun. I mean,
wow.
They're just beginning, but
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Last I heard, Evan mentioned that you had 5, which
Maybe there's only 5 he likes. That might be what it is.
we really are having such like radically different creative experiences in quarantine. I have not really made much of anything except bread.
Okay. I mean, that's not easy though. I think a lot of people figured that out.
It was interesting, you know, watching watching everyone figure out how to do things that I had like previously understood. So, you know, I felt cool. I was like, ooh, everyone's getting into baking bread, but I felt like this old like grandmaster. And then I would go to the store and couldn't buy yeast. So
Mhm.
it was
Yeah.
short-lived excitement.
Yeah, for sure. But I think it's kind of like the idea of if you figure out what makes things worth it, like what's that thing you do that doesn't bring you money, doesn't really bring you uh, any more ease in life, but it makes things more worth it. If you can somehow find time to fit that in, it's going to make those long weeks that just kind of have continued for what, pretty much like since March. I mean, it's just going to make everything a bit better, right? So yeah.
I mean,
Um,
I think that's a great stopping off place though. That idea of you just have to find the one thing. It doesn't necessarily bring you money. It doesn't necessarily make your day-to-day life any easier, but you have that one thing that you can look forward to, that one thing that makes it worth it.
Special thanks to the Community College System of New Hampshire. Faculty mentors Krista Zoba, Sally Bashalani, Kara Shenoy, and Paula Delbonis Platt, along with Dawn DeAngelis of New Hampshire Public Television, PBS, the University of New Hampshire, the Huge Humanities Project at the University of New Hampshire, and its co-directors, Krista Law Jackman and Molly Campbell. Leslie Barber at the Community College System of New Hampshire, audio editor, William Forrest Platt, copyright, New Hampshire Humanities Collaborative and CCSNH 2021.